What up, players? It's Warboss Tay up in this mud. Today we're gonna finish our Bestigor, and there are so many paints I don't even want to go over them because I don't think I have them all in front of me, and I broke this down into actually a couple of days of painting. So hope that you guys find some enjoyment in it. And I also, you don't have to do this last part, but I made him look like a former greatsword from Middenheim that just got mutated and turned into a goat man, which is why I did the quartering and the colored sleeves. But as you see in the beginning of the video, and I explained to the end, if you want to just go with a straight black robes, black cloth, then that is fine too. I just like the idea of them once being good and noble and transformed into evil men. Goat man! Hee-haw! Alright, so we're back, players, and we are going to finish today our little Bestigor, hopefully. So the first thing I would like to do is we are going to go in with some Sotek green, and we are going to start painting some verdigris, or as I like to say, verdigris. So at this point, part 3 of our little how to paint a Beastman, we've got pretty much everything all done. What I like to do with verdigris is paint in the rivets, and I like to put a little bit of water on it so we make it pretty watery, so as soon as it touches the model it should spread out. And what that is going to allow you to do is move your brush back and forth and control the pattern and the location of where that verdigris goes. So the best places for it are wherever metal meets metal, and the round rivets, and any places where verdigris will build up, oxidized metal and all that. This is always my favorite part. This is the most fun to me, putting verdigris, weathering models. Okay, so sorry, let's make sure we're in focus here. So the Bestigor army, or the Bestigor unit in the Beastman army, one of the most fearsome units in the army book. It's just because of how hard hitting it is. It's got so much punch, and you equip it well. You equip these guys well with not specifically with they have to be armed with double-handed weapons, but for all of you Beastman players out there, you might have seen some great tricks that you can do with magic banners, with putting your Bray Shamans inside these units. There's a lot of great tricks on how to bulk up your Bestigor unit even more than they are already. If any of you have ever watched Once Bitten, I believe, has some great, fantastic battle reports. I mean, Bretonnians, but also Beastmen too. He's just really, really great. What I'm gonna do is I'm also gonna paint a little line down the I guess what you would call the lower side of the little shoulder piece there, just to put a line of oxidized color in there, and I'm just gonna do it here on the inside. This is just going to accentuate these lines a little bit more. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good. Down here by the hooves, the hooves. That should just about do it. Right, next we're gonna take some, let's see if we can find it here. Some Kislev flesh. It's the equivalent of elf flesh. And we're gonna be painting up the little elf head. First of all, inside here. Painting up some highlights on the brow, cheeks, okay, and we're also going to be painting some of this Kislev flesh tone onto the poor beheaded fellow here. And we're following the lines that have been brought out because of the Rakeland flesh shade. So stick to those for highlighting any lines, highlighted or raised areas for the highlights, like the brow, the cheeks. There we go. It's really nice, and we are going to do corn red for the inside flap of skin. Make sure you water this down so that it goes on pretty watery. This little inside flap here. We'll Tamiya red that little bad boy in just a little while, but for now it's just gonna do us good too. Do that. Should about do it. Take next some white scar, and we're gonna paint this into the eyeball as well as the teeth. So whenever I'm doing fine detail work like with the eye, I just try to put all the paint on the tip and just kind of poke it rather than using brush strokes. Just kind of poke that little sucker in there. And then when you have to do teeth like this, then that's when I kind of use the flat edge a little bit more and just kind of flick the color onto it. It's not going to be perfect, but it's good enough for now. And what I like to do is take some Sotek green, and we're gonna darken under the eye just a smidge. Something like that effect. Then I'm gonna take Chaos Black or Abaddon Black, whichever black you have. We're going to make this the eyeball section. Give him a little dot for the eye. So the last little thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take some known oil. We're gonna darken the inside of his mouth, specifically the teeth we just painted, and also the inside of his mouth. Alright, so that is little zombie head, decapitated head, whatever you want to call it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start working on the rest of the little skulls or bone areas around. So I'm going to take some screaming skull and I'm just going to start layering the bone that's been hanging from this poor Beastman. Okay, here's a little tip for painting skulls. What I found works best is if you put the paint kind of like on the flat of your brush and then just do vertical strokes. So kind of like this. And then you get the teeth, you get the line of the skull. And then you can take a little bit more time on the forehead if you want. But I've always found that works. Seems to do pretty well for me. We're going to take a little bit more screaming skull now, and we are going to get to these horns. So for the horns, especially Beastman horns, they have like one line right down the middle, so that's the line that I usually start with. Just take the flat of your brush and very gently play it down the center. It's a good starting point for the horns, and it's good. It draws the eye away from the shadowy shaded recesses and into the upraised area of the center. So you can see two straight lines right down the center there. I'm just gonna start painting the sides. So if you've seen my Iron Blaster video that I did for the Ogre Kingdoms, I'm doing basically the same thing that I did there, but I'm working on a much smaller level. So what I did there was I painted each little raised area independently instead of just dry brushing the whole thing. And what that does is it's going to give you a much more satisfying finish. So taking it from this angle, I'm going to just hold it there, brace my hand against the table, and just slowly paint each little notch, I guess you would call it, on the horns taped here. I'm gonna flip them over, oops. Just paint each little notch going up, starting from the bottom. And if you make a mistake along the way, you can just go back with some Agrax Earthshade, cover that back up, and start from where you last left off. That's a great way to build up your brush control skills. It's like a great exercise Kind of like if you play guitar or you play any kind of musical instrument, doing scales is like a good exercise. This is a good repetitive exercise that will help you develop your brush control skills. It can be a little bit loose the further up you go, but there you kind of get the point, right? So we're going to do the same thing for the skulls on the head. Like I said, I'm using a champion model, but you can do the same thing on any model. We're going to start with the center. Just slowly play our brush down the center. That is probably too much paint, but that's alright. The thing about painting these fine detail areas, all painters know it's always a gamble when you first get to it. Trying to decide how much brush or how much paint to keep on your brush. So I don't want to bore you, so I'll keep you on for 2 of these that I do, and then I'll cut the camera and then we'll do the rest off camera. Remember, we're building up from the center, so ideally you want it to get thinner as you get to the sides. Gonna take you an extra, I guess, however long this video is, but it's really worth the extra effort, I think, to do all this. So I've completed 2 horns here on this side. I'm going to finish the horns here on this other side. Then we'll join back in when we're ready to move on to the next step. Hey everybody, oops, it looks like I was filming and it something happened to the clip again. So what I did was I took some Seraphim Sepia and I just washed all of the bone areas. So like the skull's down here, the 2 horns, the horns on his head, and that should do it for that. So we are just about done. What I think I'm gonna do though is I'm also gonna use Kislev flesh as a highlight for the Beastman skin. I was debating whether or not to do this, but I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go the distance. Start from down here and just work my way up. Kislev flesh is one of those colors that if you use it straight out of the pot could be just way too thick. So make sure you use a wet palette or drag some of that color over your hand so that you get rid of most of the color on the brush. You don't want it to start off, you don't want to lay it on too thick. Biceps. So I'm gonna try to stick to the top here, top of this area, work my way down. A little bit of water on the tip of my brush so that it spreads the color out. And if any of this gets, you know, if your water gets, or your Kislev flesh gets a little bit too thick, then all you really have to do is just go back over with a application of the good old Reikland Flesh Shade. In fact, I think that's what I am gonna do, just because it's such a contrast. But I think doing the Kislev flesh will definitely help to make your skin a little bit brighter and give it a little bit of a cool color tone. And the last area we're going to add is on his little goat snout. A little bit down here on his goatee. So we're just gonna go back over that with some dryad bark. Right now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some Reikland Flesh Shade and tone down all of that bright skin color. Reikland Flesh Shade. Oh yeah, that's great. That really is good. That is perfect. That does the job perfectly. Really tell the difference there in the fingers where the shade has been, where the Kislev flesh has gone. We are almost done, players. We are almost done. So the next thing we're gonna do is take some steel, leech, and drab, and we are going to paint and highlight up the fur. So what we're looking for is the fur coming down here out of his armor at the legs. We're just kind of following the lines like that. And I like this because it gives it a really nice earthy tone. I like to use steel, leech, and drab as like the color for the rim of my bases, so this will help it blend into that as well. And it also just ties it into all of the brown colors that are all over this model. His goatee. Let's see, he's got a little bit of fur here on his hand. And that's it. So we're gonna do the base and then we'll end this in just a second. Okay, we're back now for the last part of the video. I've got some Chaos Black here and some Tamiya Clear Red mixing up together right there, Tamiya Clear Red. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding the realistic blood effects to the Bestigor now. As you can see, I put some black on this side, started mixing into the red. I'm just going to be adding a little bit more red over here without the black. Just adding some water, soften it up. That way we can do either or oxidized blood here on this side or fresh blood here on this side. With Tamiya clear colors, I find that you always want to have some water nearby ready to mix, just because it's a very thick paint. And it says that it's yeah, it's an acrylic paint, but because it's a clear paint, it's going to dry very glossy, and that's what gives it that bloody sheen to it. So we're going to start with the black, or with a little bit of a mixture of the black, and what I'm going to do is paint it here on the scalp. On the fingers, and adding a little bit of the black to indicate dried blood. A little bit of the thick red goopy. A little bit more of the black flecked in there. Yeah, and now we're gonna just drip it down the side of the face. And you can really do anything with all this blood effect. You can be as gory or not as you want. I like to err on the side of more blood. For any of you who haven't seen my Night Lords videos from Project Night Lords, I like a fair amount. Also, we're gonna paint a little bit of this effect over the skulls here at the center. And just like the Night Lords, my idea for the skulls is that they are not dried skulls that have been left to hang, but they're rather skulls that have had the skin just ripped savagely off of them, and now they have all that dried blood on it. Kind of like for anyone who's seen the Predator movies. Okay, moving on to our poor elfy friend over here. And I say he's an elf, but really that's only because of the pointy ears and the angular features. Could be a human that just happens to look like that, but I don't know. You don't want to make assumptions, Master. You don't want people to think you're a racist. Nope, I do not. So now you've got like a very nice dark reddish brown black color for the skulls. Yeah, it looks really cool. We're going to add some streaks of blood to the hammer, the axe itself. So I'm putting the red first, then I'm going to be mixing it now with the black. And I think I made a mistake by not kind of sticking to like the center, but that's okay, it's alright. Oh, I've also heard if you mix a little bit of PVA glue into the red as well, that's also really good, but we are not going to do that. I'm just going to add a little bit more straight from the pot paint to make the gristle. See, when it's straight from the pot, it's a lot more like coagulated. Ew, gross. I love it. It's so awesome. So I'm gonna keep it I'm not gonna like splatter his weapon with this blood effect just because we only want it to complement. We don't want it to be too much of a focal point in the model. It is really cool though, so we want to do just enough blood and gory. Ooh, it looks like strawberries. Strawberry jam. There we go. Do a little bit more on this side, and then we should be good. There. As long as we've got some nice strawberry jam on it. Peanut butter jelly time. And that should be good. Now that that's set, the last, very last thing we're gonna do to tie this all up is we're gonna take a little bit of Rune Fang steel, and we are going to just really lightly do some fine edge highlighting on all the silvers. And what this does is it subtly draws the focus to the edge of the blades, and it doesn't without taking away from the rust and the corroded weapon effects. So I just did the rings there. I'm gonna slowly try to do like a chipped version or chipped method of painting the edges. So just a lot of light feather strokes without it's not like a fine edge highlight like you do for Space Marine armor or for Empire Knights armored plates. What it really is just doing lots of little feather brush strokes. Like this. Just getting the center, feather brush strokes up the side here. For armies like Beastmen, this method of highlighting the silver is really effective. It looks savage, brutal, animalistic. Doesn't look like well maintained, but still it draws the eye just enough. And you don't have to do this, but to me it makes the metal pop just a little bit more. So we're painting the center of the rings, just the center of the rings. And you don't want to do too much. You don't want to see the brush strokes too much. You just want to see it subtle, real subtle. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Our Bestigor is all painted up, ready for battle. Now, this is pretty much following the look of the one on the Games Workshop website, the third one, option C, which I think is the coolest one. What I'm going to do a little bit differently though to fit my Beastman army, and you can cut off from now if you don't want to watch the rest of it, is I'm actually going to paint him up to look like he was a member of the Great Swords of Middenheim. So stay tuned to see what that looks like, and we'll wrap up in the end when he's completely painted up. Alright players, so there you have it. I painted up the Beastman's colors, and I just used some Hoeth blue for the blue. I used Celestra Gray for the white, and a little bit of Known Oil to wash them both down, shade them both down, make them nice and grungy and dirty, but I did them in a quartered color scheme, and I think it looks pretty cool. So you don't have to do that, that was just the last step that I wanted to add on, but thanks for watching, hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope you enjoy your Beastman Bestigors.